Well, this week's blog is all about the European Championships in Belgium. Amazing opportunity to fish for England. I've talked about it before. Personally, for me, to represent your country in any sport has got to be the pinnacle of what you try to achieve in a sport, and for me in fishing it's no different. So I was absolutely delighted to be part of the squad that went out this year. We had a really strong squad. Callum Dix, like myself, went last year and is gone again this year. Simon Willsmore went for his first time, and then we had three really experienced guys in William Raisin, Alan Scotthorne and Sean Ashby. So, you know, 6 anglers there that are really strong, and we were committed to winning. We really wanted to win. When we wanted to originally go for a few days, getting a bit of practice away from the match pegs, just getting to the feel of the type of fishing that was going to be on offer. We'd heard that the fishing was going to be quite hard. The venues was a big canal, I'd probably say about 100 metres wide, with the sort of concrete slope on either side, and then once you got to the water, that concrete kept going to a bowl about 14 foot deep in the middle, I would say, and then it sort of gradually came out again. So where the concrete was, and the fact that there wasn't a lot of weed growth, meant that the water was absolutely crystal clear. Now, one of the biggest problems with a lot of natural venues in England and in Northern Europe is that they're getting absolutely decimated by cormorants. While I was there, I must have seen 50 cormorants in the trip, and the trouble is with that is that all the small fish are really open to getting eaten. I mean, cormorants can eat a lot of fish, and when there's a lot of them on a venue, they sort of push the fish into areas, and they really do make short work of them. So it's a real problem, to be honest, and so I hope it's something the authorities get on top of. But anyway, it's something that we've got to deal with as anglers on natural venues at the moment, and this venue was no different. So as a result, the Belgian authorities had stocked some fish into the venue, and they'd gone for big bream, with the idea being that they're not as susceptible to getting eaten, and that there will still be some fish to catch. And by all accounts, they put a lot in the venue. So when we got there, even though it was clear and it didn't look very appealing in terms of the water clarity, we still fancied it for an odd fish. I'll talk a little bit about the practice week first. Monday was a complete washout. I'll put it this way: we all had a little bit of a friendly bet. €10, who could be the first one to catch a fish that was worth weighing. And on Tuesday morning we were still carried over. None of us had a fish that registered on the scales, so it was a bit disappointing. A first day that looked really negative. We were all very disappointed, and when he went up and down the match stretch, it looked like it had been poured throughout. So instantly we were thinking, this is going to be a hard venue. There's no, it's not suddenly going to turn into a brilliant venue overnight, but we do know there's a lot of bream in there. There's odd signs of bream towards the end of the first day moving. So once a bit of bait goes in these places, sometimes they can change. The second day we were up at the top of the match length, which was the sort of better end, if you like, or early on in the week it was the better end, and we caught some fish, all slider fishing. I was using a 12 gram slider with an additional 3 gram in the actual float itself. Everybody's slider setup's a little bit different, but mine, I like having a little bit of weight in the float. The float seems to sit nicely against the bulk, so when you're casting out, it means you're casting a long way, and it casts straight, and that's really important with slider fishing. For me, the primary objective is don't get in a tangle, and make sure that your bait is well presented accurately over the bait that you're feeding. And with the setup that I use, and like I say, we all do it slightly different, but as long as you meet those goals of not getting in a tangle and fishing accurately and correctly over your bait, then it doesn't really matter how you decide to set it up. So personally, that's what I went for, a 12 gram plus 3 in the float. That's what 12 plus 3 they referred to. And because the light wasn't so good, a nice hollow tip was quite important as well. So those sort of sliders that I like to use for this. With a concrete bank sloping up behind, I opted for a 14-foot competition rod. I needed that 14 foot because like I said, that with the 13, even though it's a bit nicer to play a fish, when I was going back, I felt that I was going to be too close to the concrete. So that 14 meant it just kept me clear and kept everything nice. We were chucking quite a distance, 57 turns I was casting, which is about 45 metres when I paced it out, which is quite a distance with a float. Coming back about 4 or 5 metres, you always wind a bit of line back to make sure everything's tight, your line's sunk and you're right on your bait, and then we'd feed accurately. So the first day we'd had a good practice of doing all of that, and the second day we caught some fish. I had 10 bream and 10 gustas for around about 23 kilos. I can't remember the exact weight. William put on a fantastic display and caught 13 bream, I think, for about 30 kilos. And then the other lads, we all caught some fish. It was good. Everybody caught some fish. So, you know, I think we had between 6 and 10 bream elsewhere. And we were really confident. It was a completely different atmosphere. We knew the fish were there. We knew what we were doing was right. And I felt that was a really important day for us in the week because we all caught some fish and we could all discuss it and discuss the tactics and try and figure out what was best. The next 3 days followed a similar pattern really. What we'd find is some areas were hard and you'd catch 1, 2 or no bream, maybe an odd better perch or something. And then an odd area was a bit better and we caught, I think Thursday we all caught a few bream again, all ranging between 3 and 7 bream we caught. And then on the last day we were back in a hard area, and I think there was 3 of us caught a couple each, and one of us didn't catch anything, and then another couple with 1 bream. So, you know, you could see that even between us all, the catch rates would vary. There's obviously 6 of you go and 5 of you only get to fish, and the management made the decision to have Simon Willsmore as reserve first day. I'm sure it was really tight. I felt that we all fished well all week, and I'm sure everybody felt the same. But personally, I was delighted to be fishing, really pleased to be fishing on the first day of the European Championships. I drew E section. It was the bottom end of the match length, and it was actually a section that apparently had been a few fish there the day before, but we hadn't actually been as far down as what I drew. I drew peg 17. There was 24 teams, so about 7 pegs in from the end of the match length. I was confident, really confident. I felt we had a good plan. We used a mix of Census Black Lake and Leam and some soil. Some Terre de Riviere. You know, fantastic backing for the team by both Drennan and Census mean that we could play around with mixes during the week. You know, really was good. The one thing that I felt, it was difficult to try and gauge how much ground bait or how much soil or lean to use in the mix, because on any given day we didn't really catch loads of fish, so we all actually ended up with a slightly different mix, mainly to suit what we wanted. But we decided that we were going to put our ground bait in quite firm and try and fish for the bream on the bottom. As the first day started, I was really happy with my initial feeding. The initial feeding accurately, I know I keep doing this action because I've got it ingrained in myself still. Cast out, get your rod secure, and then feed accurately on your float. Around about 30 balls at the start, and those balls went in really well. I was really happy. Just to give you some idea really over what sort of area they go in. You're not going to hit your float every time, especially at 45 metres. But I'd say over a snooker table, that sort of area, you were looking at putting your bait. You know, you always try to put it, you know, in a bucket, but that's, like I say, it is impossible. You try your best every time. But generally speaking, the English anglers were really good at feeding, and I was really happy with how my initial bait went in. Now, the match started, and to my right, towards the end, there was a lot of bream. They were all catching a few bream. Odd breams being caught up to my left, but I just couldn't catch one. Angler on my left was blanking, and at this point, the Russian angler on my right hadn't caught. To his right, they were catching, and I thought, it doesn't matter, they will move up the canal, and I will get my chance to catch a bream. confidence and patience were absolute key in this match. You had to be really confident that you were going to catch, and I can honestly say I was sat on my box completely convinced that I was going to catch a bream, and I think that was really important in order to make sure that you were confident in what you were doing, to give it the chance to catch a fish. Anyway, then the Russian angler caught a fish, caught a bream. Then he caught another bream, and I noticed he was feeding quite a soft ground bait, and he was feeding it regularly. And he was getting a lot of bites. He was striking a lot of bites, a lot of indications, and I wasn't getting those indications. And all of a sudden I had a couple of indications, and around the 2 hour mark, myself and the management had a bit of a chat and said, look, we need to change something. Should we feed with a slightly softer ground bait, try and draw some of these fish that it was very clear the Russian had stopped sort of coming past me, really. And the lad on my left was still blanking, so you could tell that's where the fish were. And they sort of stopped catching a little bit to my right, which tells me that, you know, he had monopolised the fish. We weren't really gone down that route, and just as I was thinking about changing, the float's gone under and I've got one. Now, they'd averaged about 2 kilos all week. I'd even had 2 fish in excess of 3 kilos. That's, you know, 7 pound bream. Big fish, and a bit nerve-wracking when you're playing them in the European Champs. But this one was a bit small, about 1.5 kilos. Concentrated, got it in, really pleased. I had 2 perch and a bream, and I felt that I was going to catch another couple before the end. The only problem was that the Russian angler now is getting a lot of bites, and we just felt that something a little bit different might create something. So I went with a bit of a softer ground bait, and it didn't quite work. It was a little bit, maybe I should have persevered with what I'd done, persevered with the tactics really until the end of the match. But, you know, these things, you've got some really, really brilliant anglers on the bank behind you trying to help you. And the advice generally was that we should change and have a look at softer ground bait to try and draw some of these fish in. It didn't work. I ended up not getting another fish by the end. I did have a few indications of liners, which I think is always going to be the result of a softer ground bait, but unfortunately it didn't catch me any fish. The Russian angler here, he's ended up with 10 bream, and then I've had 1. And this lad on my left has blanked in terms of bream. I think he had a couple of perch, which gives you an impression of the venue. Had I waited with the firmer mix, maybe I'd have caught 2 bream, maybe I would have not caught a bream and then regretted not trying the softer mix. So, you know, it was a real learning experience for me. But although I was very disappointed that I hadn't had as good a performance as I have done in the past in the international matches, I felt I did everything well. Technically everything was right, and just maybe on this occasion the bream had settled on an angler who had the mix exactly right next to me and not come past. It wasn't one of those venues where there was fish for everybody and you could fish your own match how to catch them. The bream shoal had been dominated, which is clear when, like I say, you know, nothing here, 10 bream there, that's a massive difference. So, you know, it was one of those that I'm going to have to, you know, I had to think about and understand. But that night we had a talk amongst the team. We talked about how we could change things the next day, should any of our other anglers require that sort of thing. Because elsewhere we'd done all right. We'd finished 5th on the first day with 36 points. There was another team with 36 points. I think we were joint 4th, and there was a 35 points. And then Czech Republic and France had sort of 27, 29 points, I think. So we were definitely in it, big time. Second day, we'd already agreed the lowest scoring angler was left out of the team for the second day, because Simon had fished so well in the week that he definitely deserved his chance. And I had no qualms, no problems whatsoever about, because I was the lowest scoring points, letting Simon, or have it, you know, Simon was asked to step in, and of course I was happy for him to do that. You know, I'm sure I would have done a good job second day. I felt that, you know, everything that we'd done all week, and I caught some fish, that was great. But now it was about getting the result for the team. Because I fished all week, I obviously had a really good idea of what was going on, and I felt it was going to be really important for me to keep my eyes out on what was going on and what was happening. I ran the section, ran the bank for Alan, but we're on the walkie-talkies talking amongst ourselves, And we had a steady start as a team. It was definitely fishing a lot harder than the day before. We had a couple of anglers with bream, but it was looking hard. 2 hours in, Alan, Sean and William hadn't had a bream. Unbelievable really, when they caught so many bream all week. Then all of a sudden, Alan's caught a bream. You know, our top-up mix was different from the day before. We'd come up with a softer ground bait, and it had created this column of bait which has caught Alan a bream for sure. I noticed that the Russians were doing fantastically well. It was obvious on the radio they were clear winners at this point, and with Holland probably close behind, we still had 2 people without a bream. I noticed that the Russian angler in Alan's section was chopping a lot of worms, and that was something that we experimented a little bit with during the week, but not an overly large amount. And all of a sudden, it came over the radio that it had been noticed elsewhere about the worms, and all of a sudden there was 2 or 3 of us talking on the radio that worms had made a difference. Passed the information on to Alan. He's fed some bait with the chopped worms and immediately caught a bream. That was fantastic. You know, he'd done it bang right. The 3 balls he fed were perfect, and it inspired him to catch a. You know, it created that, you know, effect that was right for a bream to take the bait. He was in an area where there's seemingly no bream. And then in the last 20 minutes, the same things happened for Sean and William and Simon Willsmore, who was probably about midway in his section, and he's caught a small bream. That's given him an extra few points. All of a sudden, we'd gone from possibly not getting a medal to possibly winning. A quick points total was done, and Mark Downs is usually really accurate with the points, and he thought we'd won by 1 point. So of course we're checking and double checking, and we had to wait for confirmation. That confirmation came, stood on the podium as European champions. I can tell you, sitting here now, that was the proudest moment of my angling career to date. Absolutely amazing feeling. England haven't won the European Championships for 10 years, and to be part of that team that has won that accolade was a fantastic feeling for me, a fantastic feeling for all the lads, and we may have had a drink or 2 on the evening to celebrate that achievement. Great really, fantastic, learnt loads as always. Just want to get back and want to get things going and do it all over again. It was just a fantastic experience. I honestly inspire anyone who has any aspirations to do anything like this to get out and practice and do these things, because you know, it really is, when you work together as a team, as a unit, and you feel like you're representing your country, it's a feeling that just can't be matched. I've won some very big matches in England, and it was nothing like that. So, you know, unfortunately I had to come home, even though I'm happy to be home. And the Winter League final is this weekend on the Gloucester Canal. It's a long way from my Barnsley Blacks team. It's over 3 hours travelling. We've all been away, Slovenia, myself and Alan in Belgium now. And I think, unfortunately, with the prize money reduced so much in that event, we are talked amongst ourselves about tactics, and we're going to go on the day and try and employ some tactics that we've got. I know a lot of other teams have been and done a bit of practicing, which we would usually do, but on this occasion it hasn't quite worked out for us. So let's hope we can still get a result. We've got a great team of anglers, so I'm looking forward to going on there at the weekend and maybe employing a few of the tactics I've learnt in Belgium down on the Gloucester Canal. That's it for this week. I'll give you a blog next week, let you know how I got on the Gloucester. Thanks very much. Cheers, bye.